Hello, welcome to this week's Liquid Lunch and Learn. I'm sure you probably could already see that Jim is not available today. So I'm Dan Batan. I'm going to be running this one this week. I know as part of this, you're supposed to be able to enjoy a craft beer. I am a Budweiser person who detests most craft beers, but I'm on board to give this thing a try in the spirit of this whole thing. What I have picked out is really a callback to our old location. We're originally a Glen Cove company. This is Garvey's Point Brewery. They do a cool, unique gimmick where you could buy a growler and they fill it up with beer. So they also said these things only last a day after you drink out of after you open them. So I'm definitely gonna need some help finishing this today. This is called the Crescent. What I liked about it, first I requested their most Budweiser-ish craft beer because that's how I order things. And the Crescent beer is a super crushable beer. I can tell you what it says about the hops and something called Jarlow, and but who really cares? This is super crushable. So here goes my super crushable craft beer. Crushable, a little bitter, probably the closest thing they have to Budweiser. So it's something I like. I also got the Primal beer, which is the beach I grew up drinking in all the time to avoid trouble in town because we couldn't get into bars. Glenn, what do you got for everybody today?
I'm actually just drinking Love Street from Kabach Brewing, just down the road from me a little bit. It's a nice Kolsch-style German lager, so I will enjoy that one.
Oh, that can had a nice opening sound. Isn't that one of the best sounds in the world, Glenn?
It
sound
is.
Sound of a beer can opening. It's just better than a soda can, right?
Yeah, because it's a much better treat in the end. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So cheers.
That's what I'm saying. Hey, cheers to you.
Oh, he's got the full glass.
Oh yeah.
How is it, Glenn?
Benefits from working from home. I can have the full glass. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's a little heady because I wasn't paying attention when I was pouring it because I was trying to pay attention to Skype. But
Hey, it's perfect. You're going to be the heady one handling all the tech information on this call, so on this webinar. So it actually makes sense. How was it?
very good. Nice, light, and refreshing. We're still having hot days here in Texas, although it's getting cooler. We're supposed to drop down to the 60s finally. So from 90 this weekend down to 80 today, and then 60 tomorrow. So.
Jeez, are you still using the pool?
Yeah.
Very nice. Oh, this earbud's going to be falling out of my ear the entire time.
Just leave it out.
But I hear better from that one. I'll just tilt my head like this the whole time. Who'll notice? All right. Well, I guess this is my last sip before we start the actual webinar.
Cheers, then.
All right, Glenn, and everybody watching this. Really, this week we're going to be focusing on NDI technology. They've come out with a new announcement of NDI 4, which I'm going to learn on the fly as Glenn Seaman, who is our product workflow specialist here at Broadfield Distributing, one of our sales guys. He's really going to explain the technology and what he's learned on it. And I guess I'll let you take it from here, Glenn. I mean, I could tell that I could say that there's 3 different types of hookups between HDMI, SDI, and NDI. NDI is going towards that wireless so you don't have cables hanging around. But to sound smarter and more intelligent on the topic, I now pronounce Glenn Seaman ready to go.
Cool. Thank you. So, you're going to have to click the slides there, Dan. So let's just jump 2 slides here for me.
You got it.
So NDI's been around a while. NDI version 4 is what was just recently announced. They've been talking about it for a while. We're going to go into depth on all these things in a little bit. NDI is the widest IP-supported technology out there. With version 4, they've made significant improvements to the speed, and they've expanded the video quality that you can do through NDI. They've also improved the system management of it to make it easier to manage all these multiple NDI sources. They've increased, done a lot of things around network performance, and they've added the ability to record, virtually unlimited number of NDI streams. And then lastly, one of the other things they've added is they've created a plugin for Adobe Premiere. So if we can jump to the next slide.
Yeah.
this is a slide that's kind of been around for a while. Anybody that's seen NDI is familiar with this. It's all the different types of things that can work on NDI. The one thing that's neat about this slide is while really not many more things have been added to that, if we started throwing manufacturer names to those slides, you would start seeing more and more manufacturers continue to adopt NDI as their format that they work with. There's really, in an IP world, NDI is designed to basically use video over a standard IP network. So there's two formats out there. There's obviously the SMPTE formats for video over IP, but those are very expensive. It's not a general everyday consumer and prosumer level format. Whereas NDI is designed to work off of standard networking. No special switches are needed for the most part. If you have a network jack in your facility, you can start using NDI. On the next slide, we talk a little bit about one of the things that they've done, of course, with all this new NDI devices coming in. One of the things that they brought out with NDI 4 is a discovery server. Again, if you're only using one or two devices, no need. But when you start talking about multiple facilities, multiple NDI devices, to be able to manage and find all those devices, the NDI server makes it really nice. Look at all those things and manage them. You can set up groups and permissions and things like that. This could be used from a cloud too, so you could remotely control all of this. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought here. So the other thing that they've done with NDI is they've really kind of improved the quality. So it's been optimized. It's now 16-bit per pixel, so you now have a 16-bit image quality within there. They've added support for 420, 422, 422.4. You've got support for alpha, so both BGRA and RGBA, so alpha channel support. So just really putting a lot more into the image. It's also resolution independent. So we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into recording. But you're no longer bound to just video sizes or video aspect ratios. You can do both tall and wide aspect ratios and work with all of those. And the improvements haven't just been to NDI. For people that don't realize or don't know, there's two flavors of NDI out there. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get into some of the hardware. But there's NDI and NDI-HX. NDI-HX has also been improved. They now support 8 channels of audio. They have support for hardware acceleration, and they have been now made a little bit more. The codec itself has been made more error resilient, and it's able to work across networks that have a little bit wider scope and that are a little bit more fault prone. So it's just been improved to deal with those types of network situations. One of the things that they've improved on the network side has been to make this also robust, as it's now got a multi-TCP mode. And this is really designed to work across networks with dispersing different types of hardware, different types of performance, lots of improvements in there. One of the big things is that it can take advantage of all network ports. So if you've got multiple ports going into your record system, it will use both ports. It'll kind of do a link aggregation across them to, again, just improve performance across standard networks. But what this all really adds up to is really just the ability to record so much more. I think that's the big thing is, previously, on a TriCaster or on a solution, from NewTek, you're limited to in recording the number of video inputs, whether it's, your baseband inputs. Now, as many network feeds as you can take in can be recorded. Of course, you may not be able to record all of it onto the TriCaster. The TriCaster is still limited to the number of channels that the drives can support, but you can use that TriCaster now to start routing your video signals and choose to record. You can say, okay, great, record this NDI stream onto this NRS storage, or you can designate where things are going to record to. You actually even now have the ability to use Studio Monitor and record from within Studio Monitor. So you can set up other laptops, other systems on your network, pull up Studio Monitor and start recording. All of these are time synchronized, so you have that full ability. So you can still do full multi-camera workflow. Again, like I mentioned before, the aspect ratio is not locked. The resolution isn't locked, so it's completely flexible there. And you can record alpha channels as well. So you can give it an external alpha channel. You can record it. You've got any number of audio channels. So you've got increased audio channel support. So just the recording really changes things a lot. And then, not the last thing, but the last thing we're going to talk about really is the new Adobe Premiere plugin, which basically allows you to then take all the stuff that you recorded, bring it into Adobe Premiere. Everything is locked in sync, so you can now take that all in and do a multicam edit. So you could actually, not, sit there with multiple studio monitors or open up Studio Monitor, record all of your multiple feeds, then take that all into Premiere and do a multicam edit. Either after the live switch has been done or instead of the live switching. So that's a little bit of a brain dump on NDI for you.
Yeah, that's a
So
lot.
I think,
That's a lot to take in right there. If anyone wanted more information, you could go to NDI Central. That's available here. I'll pull up the link real fast for you guys to see.
and the nice thing about NDI Central too is that's where you can pull in. That's where the NDI tools are. So even if you just want to start fooling with NDI, you can download the NDI tools, which gives you studio monitors, gives you NDI screen scan converter, which allows you to take a laptop and send it in. But just a great place for resources, great place to get the tools and the latest tools and kind of start fooling with NDI as well.
So let's look at some of the products that are featuring NDI that we currently selling through Broadfield Distributing. First and foremost, the guys who came up with the technology, NewTek. Three main products in their TriCaster line are the Minis, the 410s, and the TC1. The Minis available in multiple flavors, SDI and HDMI. They're starting at $59.95. They run up to $11,995. You could get them on their own. You could get them with a control surface and a carrying case as well. But for the next two, I'm going to jump back to you, Glenn. On the 410 starting around 10 grand, and on the TC1 starting around 15 grand. I know there's a bunch of flavors on the TC1, but how would you best describe the differences starting with comparing the 410 to the TC1?
Yeah, so really it's going to be, where you want to go as far as HD or 4K. So really if you're looking at true 4K workflows, you're starting to lean towards the TC1. Obviously, a lot more inputs in that environment. You threw me there for a minute, Dan. Yeah, where was I here? So just a lot more video inputs. Again, more. Wow, you really threw me.
Sorry.
All right, lost my train of thought.
No worries. We know the TC1's modular. You could add one of the two control surfaces, the small panel, the large panel, even the multi-stripe ones. There's bundles you could get with the NC1 I/O box. So on the TC1, anywhere from 15 to about 42K. There's different bundles that are set up as different values.
Right, and it comes down to the number of channels that you want. Again, whether we're doing 4K inputs, the number of channels, the number of the number of effects, the number of layers you want, downstream keys. So you're talking about 4 downstream keys versus 2. Things like that. So it's really just you really got to look at the types of workflow where you want to go, and that's an environment where you really want to sit there and say, okay, well, what types of things are we doing? Obviously, the big thing too is Skype integration. So the 410 has one channel of Skype, which is Skype TX. This is how we're doing this presentation. We're running on a TriCaster. We're using Skype. If we wanted to bring in another presenter, we would definitely want to be in a TriCaster TC1 because then we can have 2 Skype channels. So again, depends on your workflow and the types of things you want to do.
That's a good point as a differentiator. Next thing in the NewTek product line, I know there's the Sparks and their NDI HX camera. The Spark is an add-on product to a camera that doesn't have NDI, and the NDI PTZ camera is actually NDI HX. All the products are NDI HX. There's a few different flavors to get the Sparks in now. There's HDMI and there's SDI, but there's a few additional versions that have come out also. Glenn, anything I'm missing covering on the Sparks or the camera?
The big thing with the Sparks there is they're wireless. So, we mentioned NDI HX. We're going to talk about that a little bit more when we get into some of the other products like Bird Dog.
Yep.
HX, there's 2 flavors of NDI. NDI, what we typically talk about is full NDI. It's really a very nominally compressed image. It's great. NDI HX really came from trying to do lower bandwidth. So NDI-HX is basically an H.264 compressed image. The beauty of it is it makes it real easy for people to jump, not people, but manufacturers to jump on the NDI bandwagon, because it's very easy to take a camera, for instance, it can do H.264 right now, and change it so there's now wrapping that H.264 as a NDI-HX signal. So it's great to bring more things in. Obviously, being H.264 compressed, it makes it a lot easier to send wirelessly. That's why you've got the Sparks being a completely wireless device. You know, you could do full NDI over wireless, but you're talking a much higher end network configuration. And, you know, it's a little bit more on the questionable side as to how much you really want to push it. It's not something you're just going to run in and say, hey, let's go show up at this venue and do it. It's something you want to set up. It's something you want to make sure you've got your network set up. You know, NDI-HX and the Sparks makes it a little bit easier to do that because it is lower bandwidth.
Good points. And the one thing I want to add is the PTZ camera is back on promotion at $21.95. Talk to your Broadfield salesperson to make sure you know what your dealer costs on those are for those products. You know, next, I mean, we've been building up to this whole NDI versus NDI and NDI-HX as different technologies. Best place to talk about this really right now would be with the Bird Dog products. Bird Dog is full NDI compared to NDI-HX. They're encoder decoders, the Studio and the Mini. The Mini is HDMI only. The Studio adds SDI. I mean, Glenn, I mean, you've been talking about it and comparing. Is there anything else you would add between NDI and NDI-HX? The one thing I would warn customers is that they're not compatible with each other.
Yeah. So this is, first off, both great. So this is no discredit on NDI versus NDI-HX.
It's not a less than situation.
It's not. It's the right product, the right format for the right workflow. The big thing is, yes, yeah, when you get into bird dogs, I've seen this, you know, a lot of people get into this problem is, you know, they just think it's NDI. You know, a TriCaster can handle NDI-HX and NDI in the same system because it's got a computer behind it to really handle it and convert those formats. The bird dogs aren't really built that way. They are native NDI. So what that means is, you know, for instance, you can't go and grab, you know, the NewTek PTZ camera and a Bird Dog Studio and put them both together and say, okay, great, I'm going to use the PTZ camera to capture video. I'm going to use the Studio out at another monitor to decode that, because the difference is NDI-HX versus NDI. But if your workflow is all native NDI, so you're using like the Bird Dog cameras, you can do that. And that's really the beauty is, you know, what Bird Dog gets into is, first off, I love the products. They're products that keep getting better. They're constantly coming out with new firmware that add more functionality to them.
They really do.
Which is rare. I mean, I'm used to a world where, oh, great, we've got this new functionality, but you got to buy a new version of the box. They come out with firmware, they add things. So, you know, the beauty of that is they can encode, they can decode. So you can have one box, you can sit there and say, okay, great. Right now what we're going to do is we're just going to use it to send, you know, video from a camera to a monitor over here over, you know, IP. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to take that same box, we're going to use it to take an HDSDI signal coming from another camera and pump it into my TriCaster. So very flexible in that world. Again, the caution is, you know, these are native NDI. You start putting NDI-HX in there, they're not going to do you any good. They're not going to work.
Next is their controller. Before we get into the cameras and what's available and what isn't, I know this controller should start shipping at the end of this month. Glenn, passing it right back to you right away.
So hard to say because, you know, it's not shipping.
I know.
But again, it's a great tactile device. You know, again, the beauty of NDI is you plug it in, it sees everything on your network. So you just one connection, you start to see all of your cameras, you can start to control them, do all the things that, you know, I played with this unit at NAB, great feel, great build.
It looks cool as heck, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Next, you know, these products are coming out. Bird Dog is saying they should release in a few weeks. We know their 200B has been shipping and has done a remarkable job. We have a lot of units out in the field as evaluation units, and they just work, and people are falling in love with the product. Again, Glenn, I know it's products that aren't here yet, But I would put it back to you to talk about these bird dog cameras. I know the eyes cameras are going to be hot when they finally start shipping.
Yeah. So, the big difference is really going to be the sensors in a lot of them. So the 200 versus the 100, much better. It's a Sony sensor on the 200. The 100 doesn't have as good a sensor. So it's really going to come down to the sensors. And then once you get into the external ones, it then just becomes, the enclosures. I mean, they're great. I've not heard anything bad about the 200. People have been waiting for a long time, and now that it's
Yep.
out, people are loving it. It's a great sensor on that camera. And again, it's native and it's full NDI, native NDI, so you're getting pristine quality.
No, that full NDI is big. First real outdoor camera, not only NDI. The products on the horizon, what they've come up with, are pretty incredible. I just can't wait to see them here. Dan, Eamon, looking at you guys. Let's get these things in here so we can start selling these bad boys. Let's go to PTZ Optics now. I know their NDI HX cameras have been around for a while. They've been a great seller of ours. Three different zooms in 12x, 20x, 30x. They work great with the TriCasters. Glenn, once again, I'll kick it back to you. What did I miss here?
Again, they're great cameras. I mean, once you're into PTZ world and you're into NDI, the they all control the same. They all work the same. They're all going to have the same interfaces. It's really just going to come down to, how good is the PTZ control on it as far as how smooth is it? If you're something you're trying to move, what are the lenses? What are the sensors? What's the price? There's some nice things about the PTZ optics. One of the nice things is that it's actually, on its own can do an RTSMP stream, so you can actually stream right out of the back of that. So there's some real nice benefits to that.
Right.
You've got multiple outputs as well. So I've seen lots of cases in church environments where, great, you're using NDI to send images to your TriCaster for switching, but you're using the HDSDI or the HDMI out to do your iMag as well. So lots of flexibility in those devices.
Yeah, no, really cool. And the wireless cable now in stock. Don't be thrown off by the title cable. Look at this box. It's very cool. It's eliminating cables. Glenn, what can you tell us about the wireless cable product, other than the fact that a lot of people want it?
A lot of people want it. You got to look at what you're comparing it to. It's a really decent price box for, when you
Real
start
hot
looking at
price.
anything, for anything, for anything else that's doing anything close to that, you're paying 2, 3, maybe 4 times as much. It's basically it's great in a venue. There's some great videos on PTZ Optics site where they're talking about it. But basically, you plug in. It's a paired transmitter and receiver, which is what you get. You plug in one unit over by your camera, and then wirelessly, it's going to send that video signal to the second unit. And if you can't run cables, if you're in a venue where you just don't have the ability to run camera cables from your camera all the way to your switcher or wherever you're going, it is a great affordable solution.
And just to discuss, so you guys understand what's in the box. When you buy it, you buy the kit. It's the transmitter and receiver. You could then buy additional transmitters to go along with the system. Panasonic. I mean, this one is crazy exciting for Broadfield Distributing to be able to say that we are now carrying Panasonic products. We're putting a big focus on the NDI products. Right now, we're working with Panasonic. We are anybody who wants to sign up, reach out to your Broadfield distributor to sell Panasonic products. To be successful selling their products, there is a deal registration process. We'd be more than happy to talk to you about it and walk you through what that process is. But since this is really more about NDI and NDI-HX, Glenn, I'll let you take it from here to talk about what makes these Panasonic cameras not only cool, but tremendous sellers. I mean, already we've been carrying the line for just a few weeks, and the amount of opportunities we're seeing these things is insane.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is it's Panasonic.
Yeah, well,
Known
absolutely.
name, known quantity. It's you're dealing with that great stuff. The biggest thing, I want to caution people about, or let people know, is they're doing both NDI on some cameras and NDI HX. So something just to be cautious of is, if you look in the middle there, you've got 2 cameras, both black. One's NDI, one's NDI HX. So just again, be cautious of that in your workflow. again, if you're bringing everything into a TriCaster or anything else that can support NDI and doing live switching, you're great. When you start getting into other workflows, just something to be cautious of. But I'm excited. Next week we're going to be at NAB New York, and I'll get to play with some of these cameras and see them and see all the goodies that Panasonic's bringing. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah,
And
it's gonna be great having that name in our booth, isn't it, Glenn?
yeah, and if you're in New York, come by NAB New York. We've got a booth there, and you can check them out too.
Yeah, all your salespeople should be there, and the lovely Alyssa Aransky will be the maitre d' of our booth. So we should have real good things for people to see, good people for people to talk to. And this controller, right, what would you say about this, Glenn?
Again, it's a great sturdy Panasonic controller, so it can control your switching, it can control your cameras. It is NDI as well, so you've got great control over there. Again, something I'm really excited about looking at and seeing. But it's Panasonic build quality, so if you just it's a sturdy case.
Yeah,
It's
looks it.
something you could rack. So PTs control, switch control is designed to work with the rest of their environment as well.
You know what I loved is Gregor Jones. He was in here and he was showing off the this controller. We all got to have our hands on it, and there's no hitch if you go up or down, left, right, on an angle or on a diagonal. There's no stepping up to where you got to be. It just goes.
Yeah.
And when you zoom in with this, the clarity in these cameras when you zoom in, it's insane. There's no loss of image when it zooms in. It's really amazing. If you get a chance to stop by the booth and see the demo, to see the Panasonic, you got to see it in action. It's amazing.
Yeah, and Gregor will be there to show you all the cool things it can do. So
He's a good guy. So that's what I have to show off about NDI and NDI HX today at today's Liquid Lunch. Glenn, you were incredible talking about all the tech stuff that I wouldn't be able to talk about. I really appreciate you. It's great having you on board. Look forward to seeing you next week.
yeah,
As a toast to everybody, again, check out Garvey's Point, their Crescent beer. There's a Prybles as well. Enjoy your pint. To everybody, signing off on today's Liquid Lunch. L'chaim.
cheers.
Broadfield Distributing is a value-added distributor of live production, streaming, video editing, and storage products. We only sell to resellers. We are always looking for new dealers. So call us at 1-800-634-5178 or email sales@broadfield.com. You'll like doing business with Broadfield because we make it easy to do business.